Back in 2013, Nintendo released a 3DS eShop exclusive game by the name of Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. It was a collection of baseball minigames, which on the surface may not sound that interesting, especially if you're not into baseball, but more notably, you didn't just simply buy this game or pay for mission packs or anything like that. You would haggle Rusty, who was the owner of the sports shop featured, and try to purchase the different games for the lowest price possible. But let's back up though. Let's see exactly what this game was and how you could start arguing with an NPC over real world money. I found this game randomly one night on the eShop, and as a baseball fan, let's go Yankees, I downloaded it since it was a free game and I want to see what it had to offer. Immediately after opening the game, you're introduced to Rusty Slugger, a retired baseball player operating a struggling sports shop. His goods been selling so poorly that his wife left him along with his 10 kids. Yeah, Nintendo really needed to think of a sad backstory for this guy, and oddly enough, it would not be the last time they gave a heart-wrenching backstory to an anthropomorphic animal salesman in a free-to-play 3DS game. So anyway, you go into Rusty's Sport Shack and talk for a bit. He'll give you a donut, and why a dog has a chocolate donut, I don't know. But the reason he gives you this is because sugary foods get customers to open their wallets. So he's openly admitting to manipulating you to get you to spend money. So talking to Rusty a little more, you'll learn how he invested all his money in baseball video games sold by Nintendo, not Nintendo, which Rusty says fixed his sink last year, because Nintendo makes the world's best baseball games. Nintendo Powers magazine, which is just a reference to Nintendo Powers, rated the games 9 out of 10 bananas. And then Rusty starts going on about being able to play games on a 3DS, which really starts to break the fourth wall. That is until he gives you the best console of all time, the Nintendo 4DS. He then cries about having to watch his 10 kids since his wife took a break and asks if you can watch one of them. If you accept, you need to choose one, and they all have such varied names. I actually had no idea who I chose, so I looked on my 3DS, and apparently I chose Rusty Jr., so let me know in the comments who you chose if you played this. And what do you get for watching a stranger's kid? And why is Rusty giving you, who he barely knows, one of his kids to watch? Yeah, parent of the year right there. So anyway, what do you get for this? You get a free demo of one of his games. You take the demo and whichever pup you chose back to your house, plug in your 4DS, and get transported into the game world. The first game is Bat and Switch, which is a pretty standard batting practice game. The first stage is really easy, but it gets more difficult as you go on. There are 10 stages with 5 levels each, so 50 total, and you also collect stamps as you complete challenges. The better you do, the higher rating you'll get, either gold, silver, or bronze for each challenge, and you do the demo challenges and get a few items such as a donut, wig, and hair trimmer, and then you go outside and learn about a Street Pass mode. I personally never use this, but it could allow you to unlock some cool things, which is alright, I guess. And like I mentioned, this game also features a stamp book, which apparently I finished 9 pages of. And there's different cosmetic items you could wear to give completionists more to do, and more ways to style your own me. So you walk back into the store, and Rusty and one of his kids will start telling you how you can buy more for real money, and that sales tax won't be factored in, breaking the fourth wall once again. And remember the donut from before? Well, you can give it to Rusty and he'll get all excited, but like I said before, this is a chocolate donut. He is a dog. Did no one at Nintendo, or Nintendo, notice this? Not only that, but you also need to give him a nose hair trimmer before he finally offers you $1 off the $4 price tag. After some more haggling, you can get it down to $2, but Rusty won't go lower than that. Then you are taken to the eShop purchase page and fork over the $2. I really miss this purchase screen since the eShop has been shut down on the 3DS. You also start to learn more about Rusty's backstory, as this is part of episode 1. And yeah, I forgot to mention that this isn't just a series of minigames, it ties into a larger story divided by episodes. Before I explain more about the story, I just want to talk a little bit more about the first game, Bat and Switch. So this will be a theme for each game, and it's to be expected to, but each level ramps up in speed and variety. Like they had a faster fastball, curveball, other pitches that just make this a little more difficult and more fun. You're constantly chasing better medals, and if you're like me, you just want to get a good enough score to move on. Now back to the reason you're here, the story, because yes, somehow this minigame compilation has a deeper narrative arc than the last 3 Paper Mario games. Episode 1 wraps up with Rusty feeling a tiny bit better about himself now that he sold you a game and fed his children dinner that wasn't just their tears. However, shortly into episode 2, his cookware gets destroyed and dinner is a mess. The next game or episode you can unlock is Cage Match. And quick note, I don't remember if you're locked to certain games to progress the story or if you have multiple choices. And also, no, Cage Match is not a wrestling mode, even though that would be kind of weird for a baseball game. It's hitting fastballs in a batting cage, and it reminds me a lot of this one FanDuel game where you battle against other players trying to hit the ball at targets. Let me know if you've played that before. This game is pretty simple, and the pitching machine throws pitches about as fast as a Little League pitcher, so it isn't very difficult. Honestly, this one wasn't my favorite because it felt clunky and never really got me hooked like some other games. After this, it's back to the haggling table. Rusty wants to take a cooking class so he can properly feed his kids, but to do that, you need to go buy the next game, which is Quick Catch. The haggling for this goes on a while. You need to compliment him and give him a wig before you can get the lowest possible price, and the rock bottom price here is $1.80, so over half off, which isn't too shabby. Before we get to the next game though, these cartoon frames show that the cooking class didn't exactly go as planned for Rusty, but too bad for him, we have a game to play. Quick Catch is one of my favorites in this collection, especially towards the later levels where the ball is hit harder and has more spin on it. You just use the circle pad to move your glove and catch line drives, and while it's very simple, it did just enough to keep me engaged. After you've played enough of Quick Catch, it's back to Rusty for episode 4. Feeling depressed because of his cooking class failures, things get even worse when a truck goes through a store. Fortunately for you though, Rusty doesn't get too worked up over this, which I don't know how he controls his emotions here, because a truck just went through a store when he's already struggling. But anyway, he gives you another free demo, Make the Call. This isn't needed for the story though, so I'm going to get to that later. The next game you'll play for the story is Field the Glove, which is obviously another fielding game if you couldn't tell. You can haggle Rusty down to $1.70 for this, and an even better price than the last one. Also, I don't know if you've noticed this, but haggling can take a ridiculous amount of time. Rusty will go on, and you will have to answer multiple questions, give multiple items, and it still won't be over. Once you finally get through all the dialogue, you'll be able to start Field the Glove though. All you do is field ground balls and fly balls by either moving your circle pad or tilting your 3DS. And as you progress, you'll even play some levels where you can move from side to side and can jump and dive, which is cool, I guess. This game is alright, but it's not the most memorable. More memorable, though, is Rusty, who we've spent way too much time away from. Once you begin episode 5 and see the still frames that tell the story, you'll see Rusty digging through the rubble in the shop and finally finding a hint about his wife's secret activities, whatever that may be. Well, you find out what it is very soon. It's his wife's wedding collar with a note saying she is just off to visit her sister for a few weeks. So you're telling me that in this world where they have consoles that will bring you into the game world, they don't have phones. Rusty could never just have called his wife at any point to ask where she was, and Rusty's wife, who has 10 kids at home, never once called him or any of her 10 kids to check up on them. Just awful parenting by these two. After a whole lot of dialogue again, and Rusty telling you about wanting to close the shop, you can get the game Make the Call, where you play as an umpire. You could probably play this for 5 minutes and be better than half the umpires in Major League Baseball. Before we get to that, let's see where Rusty's story goes. He rents out the shop and goes to celebrate with the new owner, only to find out it's his wife. So not only did his wife disappear for weeks without calling, but now she just rented property from her husband without him finding out somehow. These two seem to have some serious communication issues, and before we see the reunion of these two, you gotta be an umpire. You start off with simple balls and strikes, and then it gets more complex with more options and some levels where you have to guess what the pitch is and follow a number on a ball. It's cool to have an umpire mode in addition to the standard batting and fielding games because it just adds more variety. I love to see Angel Hernandez play this game and see how miserably bad he is at it too. I'm so glad he retired. Before I get to the ending of the story, I just want to talk about the remaining games. There's the aim game where you play as a pitcher and a hitter and try to aim the ball in certain spots. It's kind of like Cage Match, but has a little more variety. There's Drop and Pop, which test your reflexes like quick time events. If I remember correctly, this was one of my favorites. Each tire has a different button you need to press when it comes down, and the faster and more accurate you are, the higher score you get. It gets considerably more difficult in the later levels when you not only have the letters to worry about, but the D-pad as well. This was a really fun one to do for the high score derby, which as you can guess is just trying to get the highest possible score instead of just trying to get a badge. You could also see what other people online got for their high scores, which was a cool feature. Another one of my favorites is Volley Bats. In Volley Bats, you control 2 players and have to hit a ball back and forth like you're rallying in volleyball. Besides being something that would be fun in real life if you use like a beach ball or something, this was just a creative mode that showed its full potential when juggling is introduced in later levels. It get really chaotic when the ball is moving faster and you need to worry about multiple balls, and this is also an unofficial 2-player mode if one person holds the right side of the 3DS and the other holds the left side. Gear Games is another non-traditional mode where you go from balancing a ball on your bat by tilting your 3DS to cleaning a dirty glove on the touchscreen. The glove mode was kind of meh to me, like it's not that fun in my opinion, but the balancing mode could be really fun, especially if you're going to go for a high score. Like a lot of games, this just isn't very complex, but I get what Nintendo was doing here, and it works well enough. The final game here is Batmaster, and it's not really a game, and I think I actually remember this the most vividly though. You take a piece of lumber and you use it to make your own bat. You get to customize the shape, color, and design, and then try to set a record for furthest hit ball. I remember trying to make different bats to break my record, and apparently my furthest hit ball was 634 feet, and it's not too bad if I do say so myself. You can even use your custom-made bat in other game modes, which was a nice touch. On to the final parts of the story. You meet Rusty Slugger, Rusty's wife and the new shopkeeper. You learn a little bit about how she wants to keep Rusty's dream alive. Little did she know how depressed she made him by running away for a few weeks with no communication. But after buying a game for $1, I'm pretty sure it could be any one of them, you get the final episode storyline where they all live happily ever after. The pup you chose at the beginning goes back to spend time with you after returning briefly home. And that's Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. The 3DS seemed to have a lot of these gimmicky digital-only games made by Nintendo, like this, Badge Arcade, which I went over in another video and you should check that out. Me Plaza, which I want to cover in another video, and I'm sure there's other forgetting, so let me know in the comments. I used to always think how weird it was that they just didn't have set prices for these games and how you could haggle to get lower prices, and it definitely is weird. Just think there are people out there who paid full price when they didn't need to. To be fair, the game makes it very obvious when you can get a lower price, and it tries very hard to give you the best deal, so it's kinda on you if you choose to pay more. I think you actually get some kind of reward if you do choose to pay full price, or I should say if you chose to, because the 3DS eShop is closed now. You can't download this game anymore if you don't already have it, and if you do, you can just claim the games you don't own for free. But anyway, if you chose to pay full price, it would be $40 for all the minigames compared to just $16 with haggling, which honestly isn't that bad of a price for what this is. I certainly got my money's worth, and it was cool how you could just get the games you wanted instead of needing to pay for everything. And yeah, was the haggling needed? No, they could have just had set prices. But I get what Nintendo was trying to do. They were trying to make it seem like you were getting a better deal, and it kinda worked. But since Rusty's Real Deal Baseball came out in 2013, we haven't seen much of Rusty since, outside of a cameo appearance in Smash along with his Japanese counterpart Inuchi, but he'll forever be a relic of this era of Nintendo where they were churning out these gimmicky digital games. I'd honestly love to see a new version of this on Switch 2 with updated minigames, just to let us relive the simpler times when we played this. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive of Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, and if you did like this, I'm sure you'll enjoy the Badge Arcade video I mentioned before, as well as my other content. If you made it this far, I'd really appreciate a like and subscription to my channel, as it really helps me out. Also consider joining my Discord, because I'm trying to build a community over there. Also comment your experience with this game and other games you'd like to see me cover. Thank you for watching Domainy, and I'll see you next time.